Elena Voss grew up believing that loyalty was the most important thing a person could offer another. Her father, Beta of the Ashwood Pack, taught her that strength without honor meant nothing. Her mother taught her patience. And her younger sister Ivy taught her, without ever meaning to, what it felt like to always come second in someone else's eyes. Elena never resented Ivy for being adored. She simply learned to expect less attention for herself. She trained harder, studied pack law more carefully, and carried herself with a quiet steadiness that made the older warriors trust her. By the time she turned 23, she was already respected as a future leader, someone who earned her place, rather than being handed it. Then came the night of the scent bond ceremony, the ritual that would reveal her true mate before the entire pack. The air that evening was cold and sharp, filled with anticipation. Elena stood at the center of the circle, her heart pounding, as the pack elders called forth the bonding flame. When the fire rose and turned a brilliant blue, a sign that a true mate had been found beyond their borders, a murmur spread through the crowd. Few pack members ever witnessed a cross-kingdom bond. Fewer still lived to see one involve royalty. Word arrived within days. Her mate was Damian Cross, the Alpha King of the Blackthorn Kingdom, a man known for his discipline, his fairness, and the quiet intensity that made even seasoned warriors lower their eyes. Elena had never met him, yet the bond promised a connection deeper than any first impression could offer. She should have been overjoyed, and for a while, she was. But Ivy had never learned to accept being outshined. Elena did not know, not then, that her sister had already begun planning. Ivy had always envied the calm authority Elena carried, the respect she never had to ask for. She envied it so much that when opportunity presented itself, she took it without hesitation. The kingdom's binding ceremony, where mates were formally marked before their people, required the couple to meet under veils, a tradition meant to honor the purity of the bond before appearances influenced judgment. Ivy discovered an old, forbidden herb, capable of altering scent temporarily, hidden away in the pack archives for its dangerous history. She used it to mask her scent as Elena's, slipping into her sister's place just before the ceremony began. Damian, trusting the ritual and unaware of the deception, completed the binding mark on the woman standing before him, believing her to be Elena. By the time the truth surfaced, it was too late. Pack and kingdom law considered a formal binding mark unbreakable once completed. Ivy revealed herself with practiced tears, claiming she had been overwhelmed by nerves and accidentally taken her sister's place, insisting it was fate correcting itself rather than deceit. The pack elders, eager to avoid a diplomatic incident with the Blackthorn Kingdom, accepted the excuse. Elena's protests were dismissed as jealousy. In a single night, Elena lost her mate, her title as future Luna, and the trust of people she had served her entire life. She remembered standing outside the great hall afterward, alone in the dark, listening to the celebration continue without her. No one came to check on her. No one asked if she was hurt. She learned in that silence exactly how quickly loyalty could be rewritten when convenient. For the following months, Elena was pushed to the edges of pack life. She was given menial duties, quietly removed from council meetings, and spoken of in hushed, pitying tones. Ivy, meanwhile, was escorted to Blackthorn Kingdom to begin her new life as Luna-in-Waiting, wearing a crown that was never meant for her. Elena refused to let bitterness consume her. Instead, she turned her pain into purpose. She spent her mornings training with the warriors who had once overlooked her, earning their respect through discipline rather than rank. She spent her evenings studying old pack texts, searching for anything related to the rare herb Ivy had used. It did not grow naturally within their territory. Someone had brought it in from outside, and Elena intended to find out who and why. Her research led her to whispers of a rival kingdom, Veyrath, known for its ambition and its history of undermining Blackthorn's strength through subtle manipulation rather than open war. If Ivy's deception had been assisted, even unknowingly, by outside influence, then the entire binding was not just a personal betrayal. It was a political weapon aimed at destabilizing two kingdoms at once. Elena kept her suspicions quiet, gathering evidence patiently, refusing to accuse without proof. She had learned enough about power to know that truth without evidence was easily dismissed as bitterness. Meanwhile, In Blackthorn Kingdom, something felt wrong to Damien from the very beginning. He had expected the pull of a true mate bond to feel undeniable, a warmth that settled into his chest and never left. Instead, standing beside Ivy felt strangely hollow. He told himself it was simply the pressure of new responsibilities, the unfamiliarity of a new life together. But the feeling did not fade with time. It grew heavier. Ivy played her role well in public, gracious and composed before the court. But in private, small inconsistencies began to surface. She flinched at parts of Blackthorn history any true bonded mate should have instinctively sensed through their connection. She showed no reaction to certain rituals meant to stir a mate's memory of their first meeting. Damien began to notice the gaps, though he said nothing at first, uncertain whether his doubts were fair or simply the anxiety of new leadership. It was a border dispute months later that finally brought clarity. A conflict along the shared boundary between Ashwood and Blackthorn required both packs to send representatives to negotiate peace. Elena, now respected among Ashwood's warriors despite her fall from formal status, was chosen to attend as a neutral voice, someone who understood both diplomacy and combat. The moment Damien saw her walk into the negotiation hall, something inside him shifted violently. The bond he had expected to feel with Ivy struck him instantly and completely with Elena, a recognition so powerful it nearly stole his breath. Their eyes met, and for a moment, neither of them could speak. Elena felt it too, an overwhelming certainty that settled deep into her chest, confirming everything she had quietly hoped was true, but had been forced to bury. This was her mate. It had always been her. Damien excused himself from the negotiations and requested a private conversation with Elena immediately afterward. Away from watching eyes, he asked her directly what had happened the night of the binding ceremony. Elena, trained now in patience and precision, answered honestly and without exaggeration, showing him the research she had gathered about the forbidden herb and its connection to Veyrath's influence. Damien listened in silence, his expression darkening with each piece of evidence. When she finished, he did not respond with anger toward her. Instead, he thanked her for her honesty and asked for time to confirm the truth properly before taking action, both to protect her from unfair blame and to ensure Ivy's manipulation could be exposed beyond doubt. Over the following weeks, Damien quietly investigated the binding ceremony, speaking with the elders who had overseen it, and examining the herb Elena had identified. The evidence aligned perfectly with her claims. Ivy had indeed disguised her scent, and further investigation revealed correspondence between a Veyrath messenger and a member of Ivy's inner circle, confirming outside involvement meant to weaken both kingdoms through a false and unstable bond. Confronted with the evidence, Ivy's composure finally cracked. She admitted to using the herb, though she insisted she never intended real harm, claiming she simply wanted the life she believed she deserved. She denied knowing about Veyrath's involvement, though the correspondence found suggested otherwise. Damien called for a formal gathering of the court, along with representatives from Ashwood Pack, to address the truth publicly. Ancient kingdom law allowed a king to renounce a binding mark if it was proven to have been achieved through deceit or forbidden magic, though such a renouncement had not been invoked in generations due to its severity. Standing before the gathered court, Damien spoke clearly and without hesitation. He explained the deception uncovered, the evidence gathered, and the influence of Veyrath in orchestrating a plan meant to weaken both kingdoms from within. He formally renounced the binding mark placed upon Ivy, declaring it invalid under ancient law. The court fell into stunned silence. Ivy was stripped of her title and her place within Blackthorn Kingdom. Rather than seeking harsh punishment, Elena spoke on her sister's behalf, asking that she be given the chance to live quietly, away from positions of power, rather than facing exile into danger. Elena had endured betrayal, but she refused to let it turn her into someone who took pleasure in another's downfall. Ivy was sent to a distant, quieter pack territory, stripped of status, but allowed a chance to rebuild her life, away from the influence that had corrupted her judgment. With the truth fully exposed, Damien turned to Elena before the entire court. He spoke of the moment he first sensed the true bond between them, a connection he now understood had been hidden from him through deception. He acknowledged the strength she had shown throughout months of unfair treatment, never once resorting to cruelty despite every reason to. He asked her, in front of both kingdoms, to accept her rightful place as his true mate and Luna, not out of obligation or fate alone, but because he had come to deeply respect and admire the person she had proven herself to be. Elena, standing tall despite everything she had endured, accepted. The formal binding ceremony that followed was unlike the first. There were no veils, no rushed rituals, only truth, witnessed openly by both kingdoms. When Damien placed the mark upon her, the bond settled instantly and completely, a warmth that neither of them had to question or doubt. The following months brought significant change. Elena took her place as Luna of Blackthorn Kingdom, working alongside Damien to strengthen relations between Ashwood and Blackthorn, ensuring the kind of manipulation Veyrath had attempted could never succeed again. She used her experience with betrayal to help establish clearer safeguards within binding traditions, ensuring no other family would suffer what she had. Her father, who had once stayed silent during her exile out of fear of political consequence, apologized to her privately, admitting he had failed to protect her when it mattered most. Elena forgave him, understanding that fear could make even good people fail those they loved, though she made clear she would not tolerate silence in the face of injustice again. As for Ivy, reports occasionally reached Elena of her sister's quiet life in the distant territory, working modestly among healers, slowly earning back a measure of respect through humility rather than status. Elena did not seek reconciliation immediately, understanding that trust, once broken so deeply, could not be rebuilt through mere words. But she left the door open, choosing patience over permanent resentment. Elena's rise to Luna was never framed, by herself or by those who respected her, as a story of revenge fulfilled. It was instead recognized as proof that integrity, patience, and quiet strength could outlast deception, no matter how convincing it first appeared. Years later, when new pack members asked about the early struggles of their Luna, elders would tell the story not as a tale of a crown stolen and returned, but as a lesson in resilience. Elena Voss had lost everything in a single night, through no fault of her own, yet she had chosen to rebuild herself rather than collapse under injustice. And when the truth finally came to light, it was not luck that restored her place beside the Alpha King. It was the strength she had carried through every quiet, difficult day, when no one else believed in her. Damien often said, in the years that followed, that he had not simply found his true mate again once the truth was uncovered. He had discovered, through her endurance and integrity, exactly why the bond had chosen her in the first place. Elena Voss became Luna, not because fate corrected a mistake, but because she had proven, through every trial, that she was always the rightful choice.